Welcome back to the NewLeaf Symbiotics Virtual Field Day near New Hampton in Northeast Iowa. I'm Mark Dorenkamp for Brownfield. We're enjoying the sunshine, a pretty nice breeze, and Allison Jack is back with me. Allison is Technical Product Lead for NewLeaf, and we've talked before today about the tour across the Midwest and all the work you've been doing this summer. So let's refresh our viewers as far as this location and kind of a culmination of a lot of hard work.
So yeah, thanks Mark. We're not only working with our corn rootworm product with intent this season, we're working with an existing soy product which is Terrasym 401, and we're also working with two pipeline soy products, tentatively labeled NL12 and NL13. So we're actually able to get a commercial scale assessment of product performance before we've even launched them, which is fantastic. And then on top of, and those are biostimulants, on top of that we have two corn products. It's the same isolate. 408 is an in-furrow application, 450 is a seed treatment, and we have that at I believe 24 locations, and then the soy biostimulant is at 19 locations. So we've really gotten a great look at performance across broad geographies, and we're excited to share a little bit about what we've been finding.
And we're going to get into those findings, but first, just to remind our viewers that we are having to do this virtually today, still being a new company, 7 years old, NewLeaf. I'm sure you would rather have people in the field with you to talk about the results so far, but we're making the best of it, dealing with some broadband connectivity issues, which with all of this distance learning and working from home, it's really kind of highlighted the importance of that. But I'm sure that you would much prefer having growers out here in the field walking rows with you.
It would be great to meet everyone in person, and we look forward to doing that next season. The only silver lining of that cloud is that we are able to reach a broader audience, maybe people from other geographies. And as Natalie mentioned, we're really looking to expand into some specialty crops as well. So people who may not have come to a row crop trial, like, may be tuning in. So hello, if you're out there.
And if you are out there, then you see this nice display, and I'd like for you, Allison, to kind of run through what we're looking at and why these were data points that you wanted to highlight.
So something that's been fantastic about working with intent is, yes, we're getting yield data, and we're super excited about the yield data because that really is, where we show product performance. But because these are biologicals, and because, as Natalie mentioned, they're symbionts with the plant and they have a really close association with the plant, we see some very interesting early season and mid-season phenotypes. So what intent has been able to do, they have regional technicians that can come out and visit sites in their assigned region, and we've had, I think, up to 4 for the corn rootworm trials. It's 4 field visits plus yield, and for the biostimulant trials it's 3 field visits plus yield. So, and we get that data back in real time. So what we're able, and again, like, real time means that some of this data is still coming in, and these are trends that we're observing with live analysis of data coming straight in from their technicians. And what intent was able to do is set up a photo lab. So they're taking specimen photos of the roots that they've been digging at, like V2, V3 for our biostimulant products and for the corn rootworm products. And what we're able to do with those images, one of the benefits of being at Bridge Park, like Matt mentioned, we're at the startup incubator associated with the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. So we're able to collaborate with scientists there. We're working with the top lab right now. They've helped us get set up with digital imaging of root traits, or DIRT, which is a root phenotyping software. So we've been able to access their computing infrastructure to do automated image analysis on all of these very, very many root photos. It has definitely been a season of, I've seen a lot of roots. Yeah.
So farmers have varying opinions on data. I think most, if not all, understand that the data is really crucial to being profitable, but I think some have embraced it more than others. And so when you talk about something like the roots and analysis there, yield is always kind of that big attention getter, but maybe talk more about why this type of information can really help in decision making.
Well, it helps us in a couple of ways. One, this season we've been able to kind of reconnect the dots back to our early R&D. So some of the things that we observed in the greenhouse, in our product pipeline, our R&D pipeline, we've been able to then circle back and show that we're seeing that in the field at commercial scale. So I'll get to that on the next slide. I don't want to like move that one and then move this one back, but and another thing that we've seen, growers, we had a soft launch last season, and a lot of growers got back to us and said, wow, you know, I did some root digs, and you put them next to each other and you really see a difference. And that's a great observation, but we wanted to go further and really put some hardcore root phenotyping around that observation. And then we want to go even further, that when we get the data set back on yield, if we see a strong correlation between this early season vigor, this root phenotype that we've observed a lot, if we see a strong correlation between that and yield, that helps us screen for the next generation of products, because you only have to grow something in the greenhouse for X amount of time to really be able to observe that phenotype. So for all of those reasons, we're just really excited to have such a robust data set this season.
And collecting that data now, and I would imagine that you plan on seeing that continue to grow into next year. And just so our viewers fully understand, we're talking about a corn rootworm product that is not yet commercially available, but NewLeaf does have some products that are on the market.
Yes, our Terrasym 401 for soy is currently on the market, and Terrasym 408 and 450 for corn, 1N401 seed overtreatment, are currently on the market as well. And then what's unique about our corn rootworm product is that one of them, Terrasym 201, is the corn rootworm root damage mitigation isolate. Terrasym 801 is a combination of that isolate with a biostimulant isolate as well. So we're also looking at how to capture some of the benefit of the biostimulant and combine it with a mitigation phenotype. So that's why we're actually doing the same phenotyping of all of our products in the early season, just to see, okay, well, also does the corn rootworm mitigation isolate have a little bit of a root enhancement, like even in the absence of pressure. So yeah.
Let's circle back to IN10T, Allison, and we do have a couple of representatives from IN10T that are here. We'll be talking to them later today. But as far as the value that they provide with these research trials and just being in the field, helping NewLeaf, maybe explain a little bit about how that partnership began, and then, again, the value that you see there.
I came to the commercial team after the partnership began, so I can't really speak to that, but you can ask in the next segment. They'd be able to flesh out like how we found each other as companies. But we started talking about protocols pretty early on, and we've just been working really closely with IN10T all the way through, from trial planning to implementation. And this is just such a logistical feat. Not only are they taking root samples for us, taking them to their own photo lab, then uploading those photos so that I can work with them with the Danforth Center. They're also doing tissue sampling at multiple time points, sending that to a third party, and then getting that data back to us. So a lot of it is, you can be in the planning phase and say, wouldn't it be great if we had this whole data set? But it's the implementation phase and that real access to the data that's just been great.
Anything else on this display? I know you have another one you want to show our viewers, so anything else with this one before we switch over?
Yeah, so this is just kind of a schematic that shows, again, going beyond the side-by-sides. We've observed that a lot. We observed it in the greenhouse. We've observed it in our R&D trials, and we've observed it with our commercial soft launch last season. But being able to really put some hard numbers around, well, they look a little bit bigger, So this is how the digital imaging of root traits or DIRT software works, is that if you take a really nice JPEG, and this is the photo lab work that I've mentioned that IN10T is doing for us, if you take a really nice JPEG on a black background with a size marker, and your label of which treatment it is, the software extracts a first layer that's like a mask, basically, that converts everything to pixels. And from this layer, you can calculate things like total area, and length and width and all of that. But also DIRT extrapolates kind of a map of the root system. And that root skeleton, or that root mapping, allows you to look at things like number of root tips, which of course are really important for nutrient uptake, because that's where all the root hairs are. So we're able to, I think it generates 75 independent metrics from each image. So, and I will say again, since this is live, we are getting the data in right now, and we've just done the tip of the iceberg in terms of an analysis. So we're going to be mining this data set for a while to come now, for both product development and to feed back to innovation within our R&D team.
And for a size reference for those viewing, this is a poker chip here.
It is. Yes. It's nice and round, and it's white, so yeah.
You gonna swing by the casino on your way home?
Maybe.
Well, as we transition here, I think about the perceptions and the opinions of biologicals and how they have changed through the years. And you were talking earlier today about, I think it was at Commodity Classic, talking to a farmer about how his or her opinion has sort of evolved with biologicals. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, that was a great conversation. So, coming from a technical field, Commodity Classic was my first trade show. So it was great to really hear from customers and potential customers, like what are the things that are important to them? What are they really looking for? And the statement that one grower made was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if anyone had been here with a booth selling biologicals, I would have said no thanks, because I think they're all snake oil. But he said what the challenge really is now is maybe there are 15 or 20 companies here, and I know from everything I've heard that like some of them are the real deal, but it's hard to, it's a cluttered landscape, right? So how do I know as a customer like who's backing their claims with data, and which is the one that I want to select, because I can't really try all 15 on my farm and run my own trials. So
in hosting a virtual field day like this, you're going to help the grower kind of sift through all that noise to see if, hey, this might make sense on my farm, it might not, but let's run through this slide now.
Sure. So again, some of the early observations in our R&D pipeline with greenhouse work is that we saw some upticks, pretty significant upticks in micronutrients. So in terms of nutrient acquisition, so with leaf tissue in both corn and soy in the greenhouse, we've seen with some of our commercial isolates and some of our pre-commercial isolates an increase in foliar manganese and foliar iron content. And we, not surprised, like it always makes you feel good about your pipeline when you're like, oh, you look at the data coming back from like live coming back from the field visits from Intent, we're like, hey, we see a bump in foliar manganese and foliar iron. So that's something that, when you're working in the greenhouse, you have to do it because of the sheer scale of things that you're trialing. Like I can't try 1,000 isolates at this scale, right? But we can try 1,000 isolates in the greenhouse. And you always in the back of your mind are like, well, I hope whatever we're observing here also holds up in like the field and in a commercial scale setting. And that's really what we've been able to see and to verify with these data sets. So so with both Terrasym 408, which is our corn biostimulant, 201, again, which is the corn rootworm mitigation isolate, and 801, which is a combination of a different corn biostimulant and the corn rootworm mitigation isolate, we see that trend across all of our corn products is an uptick in iron and manganese.
And there it also says in real world growing conditions.
Exactly.
And so there are so many variables. And so as you try to collect this data, it's important to point out to again, people that might be interested in the product that you're trying this in a variety of settings.
Oh, exactly. We're across broad geographies, which is why the road trip was so long. We're like, yay, we're really happy to be across such a broad geography. Yeah, it's a lot of driving, but we're doing good.
So I'm sure you're most excited about doing some live broadcasting to end the whole thing, right?
This is a really exciting, like, kind of, like a capstone on the entire experience. It's great to be able to connect with people digitally, even if we can't connect with them in person. So.
And again, with the thought of if people were able to come and attend this today, some other comments or questions that you assume you would hear, anything else you want to address right now?
Oh yeah, so again, like, you're doing this fancy dirt phenotyping, what are you finding? So like, let me make sure to give a shout out to these data here. With all of our corn products, and again, this is just the tip of the iceberg on analysis. We're going to be mining this data set for a while, but what we've been able to identify is across the board, some moderate increases in total root area, skeleton rooting depth, skeleton rooting width, and number of root tips. And with our Terrasym 408, our biostimulant isolate, We also saw a 9% increase in nodal root length, and that transition from seminal roots to nodal roots is so crucial because the seminal roots can't actually uptake any nutrients from the soil, nor can they uptake any of your starter fertilizer. So again, I've spoken with some agronomists in this space, and they've said, well, you know, that certainly can't hurt, but we've got to see the proof with the yield data, and so we're very excited to share that back with this audience as well once we can put all those pieces together. But then, you know, this number of root tips, we're really going to investigate that in terms of, you know, could that be one of the modes of action of the enhanced nutrient uptake? Because if you think about root tips, that is the location where the transiently produced root hairs are in terms of the root system. And so if you have more root tips, possibly you have more root hairs, which would be a higher surface area for nutrient acquisition, which could be, and again we say could because we're learning as we're going along here, it could be one of the reasons that we're seeing these nutrient acquisition upticks so consistently.
Talking about yield, that kind of just is overhanging everything when you get into, you know, for plant fertility and those topics. But I'm looking at this very healthy looking cornfield right now, and it's not going to be too long that we're going to be approaching harvest, and farmers are going to wonder about standability. And again, it circles back to the need to have as healthy a plant as possible, and farmers are exploring different avenues to make sure that their plants are healthy enough to make it to harvest.
Yeah, and something that I didn't even realize, some growers are even applying micronutrients. Like if you're in a geography where you have iron chlorosis in your soy, or you have manganese deficiency and you're buying manganese and applying it, you know, maybe this is something that can either help increase the uptake of the micronutrients that you're implying or help mitigate some of the issues with iron chlorosis. So we've learned that in sharing the results back with intent and discussing them in the team calls. So it's just been a great collaboration in terms of understanding not only how our products are performing, but how we can position them in the marketplace.
These Terrasym products, application, flexibility, seed treatment, I believe, and also foliar application too?
In-furrow with the starter fertilizer, and we have good compatibility with starter fertilizer, so you can actually mix those together and apply.
Well, it's a lot to digest, and you have a lot going on, and for our listeners that want to learn more, they can continue to watch today, but again, they can go to your website too and get some information.
Yeah, and we'll be sharing live updates on all of the data rolling in from these trials, and definitely you will hear from us when we have the yield data to really round out this story.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
We're at the NewLeaf Symbiotics virtual field tour in Northeast Iowa. Mark Dorenkamp live on Brownfield.